First, I want to say that I'm under doctor's care for my left eye, so if it seems abnormal, I and my ophthalmologist are aware of it. Okay, this is a project of me sharing some of my insight into education with parents, guardian, teachers, or even students between the ages of, say, 8 and 19 or 20, from maybe about a third grader to a college freshman. It's about an hour long. It's real rough and unpolished because I was interested in getting it out there during the Labor Day weekend. So here goes. I was talking to a teacher in the park, and he was talking about the problems with trying to improve the education system. I gave some thought, but lately, after the coronavirus and remote learning and virtual classing starting this semester or school year, I decided to put some of the ideas down in a recording. I'm not sure if it'll solve or how many of the problems he talked about it will solve, but I concluded that it wouldn't hurt. So here goes the experiment. To me, for the last 10 years, learning or making good grades in school was seemed like the easiest thing in the world to me, and I wondered about it. So now, because of the new virtual learning, I decided to try to put some of the things I learned about getting good grades down, and there are principles, and I want to explain the principle. The first time I took a computer science class, my professor said in order to be able to program a computer enough to pass this course, you have to be able to type 22 to 24 words a minute. And he gave us a sheet with a keyboard on it and told us to learn the keyboard and to put our index finger on the A and H, I believe. Oh no, it's on the G and the H, and learn where the rest of the keys are located and practice so we can be able to type at least 24 words a minute, because when you're taking tests about how to program a computer, you have to write the program, then you have to input the program into the computer. And him giving us the layout of the keyboard was him giving us the principles for learning how to type. And in order to learn how to type more than 22 words a minute, you have to practice. You have to take those principles and practice. So what I'm doing now is attempting to give out principles that I use to make grades and good grades actually, and to learn quite a bit. Um, the first principle I want to give out is reading. There are two principles of reading. One is syllable pronunciation. The other is word recognition. Okay, syllable pronunciation is where you learn the alphabets, and then from there you learn to pronounce syllables. And there's about 42, maybe even 46 now. There's between 42 and 48 sounds in the English language. And you take a phonics course and you learn to pronounce those sounds. Now, when you compare that to Cantonese, what most people call Chinese, or Mandarin, which people also call Chinese, um, their language contains 3,000 symbols. So Asian children from Korea to China learn between 1,700 symbols and 2,000 symbols in order to just read. And so, which I'm saying to say, learning how to read with 26 alphabets and like 46 symbols is easy, and it requires practice. Um, but from reading using syllable pronunciation, you go to reading word recognition. Now, reading using word recognition, in the mid 70s, some people call it speed reading, and that was, of course, Ellen Wood, speed reading. And it's where you actually learn to read real fast. And if you may be familiar with a put down that some people use. You hear on television that this person is so slow when they read, you see their lips move. And that's just a put down that people who read enough to use word recognitions used to put down people who haven't read enough to learn to use word recognition. Word recognition is when you look at a word, but instead of pronouncing it in your brain, you recognize the meaning of that word, and so you see the word, recognize the meaning, and move on. And you actually learn to read faster than you can talk. And after you learn to read using word recognition, and you learn to read faster than you can talk, you go from there to where you read and your lips don't move. I took a course from Elvin Woods in 75, 76 to learn how to speed reading, and I gave up. I thought it didn't work. But it started working for me around 78, 2 years later. And I realized word recognition kicks in only after you start reading the same material over and over again. If you just start reading and you read it once, you won't be familiar with the words enough that you'll know the meaning of the words just by looking at them. Okay, so in reading you have word recognition and you have speed reading. In studying in upper level college courses, I would read the material when the teacher said read it, and then when I went to class, I had to take notes, and I take them down real fast because the teacher was talking real fast. And then after class, I'd go to the library, write the notes over again where I could read them, and I would put the notes in a notebook, and then I would go back and read those notes. And after every class, when the class was over, I would go back and rewrite the notes so I could read them, put them in the notebook, and I would start at the notebook from the beginning of the notebooks and read it to the end. And I would do that every day with every class that required notes. Some calculus courses didn't require notes. And when it comes to reading the textbook, I would read when the teacher would say read it, go back and read it again for pop tests, read it again for midterms, and read it for finals. So I was reading the same material over and over again, and doing that with 4 or 5 classes a semester, reading them over again, then speed reading would start to kick in. So it got to the point where material that I had never read before, I could just look at each word and see the meaning, and I would interpret the meaning of the word and kept going. And that's why I learned speed reading. And again, it kicked in from reading the same material over and over again. Is how it kicked in. Okay, and those are the concepts. Those are 3 concepts: how to prepare for tests, how to read at entry level, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. When I think you got into 6th grade, when you start reading history and literature and stuff, especially history, when you have to study it, reading them over and over again is when it starts. And sometime between 6th to 10th grade, I would imagine, speed reading would kick in. From there, I wish someone had told me, and a lot of my friends who graduated with honors and professors now, talked about how, in certain courses, in the courses, the technical courses, math and chemistry, the biggest problem I ran into, and they ran into, was in calculus and chemistry, some of the formulas are obvious. You can look at carbon monoxide and see what it is, and you can deduce formulas in both factoring equations and chemical compounds, and know what they are. But some of them you can't. You have to write them down and memorize them for tests. And that's both in algebra 1, algebra 2, calculus, trigonometry, etc. And chemistry. Learning which ones you can deduce and which ones you can't deduce, and memorizing the ones you can't deduce was like a big, put it this way, 2 of my friends, one graduated with honors, the other one's a college professor now, decided as seniors that they would make a list of all the equations where you can't deduct how to factor them and pass them down to freshmen. So freshmen will know, memorize these. If you memorize these now, you will make higher grades through your whole college career. Because when we look at them, you can't figure out how to do them just by looking at them. And I had the same problems. I would get caught up in on some calculus test and couldn't figure out stuff because the answer was not obvious from deduction. So learning for chemistry and for algebra and calculus and trigonometry and mathematics, what you can deduce and what has to be factored, I mean what has to be memorized, is another principle that I think will help make learning easy. I also want to add some motivational stories. In school, in college, it's common for freshmen to declare these incredible majors. I'm a nuclear physicist major. I'm also majoring in international philosophy. And when people talk about it, when you go to parties and you meet socializing, you look brilliant, right? Because of your major. But it's also common for a lot of people with those to declare those majors to not put in the work necessary to actually get the degree that they're majoring in. But some of us did well enough to where we got to our sophomore year. And when we got to our sophomore year, I had friends of mine, Willie Perkins, Michael Gordon, guys here. Okay, I'll tell a story about one of them. I'm not gonna call a name. One day he came out of my room, asked me if I had any bread. I said, yes. It's in the fridge. And he left and came back and asked me if I had any cold cuts. Yes, they're in the fridge. Then he asked me for some Kool-Aid and some sandwich spread and some Kool-Aid. And I said, well, if you want a sandwich, why didn't you just ask for a sandwich? I wasn't sure you would give it to me. Now, that same semester, that gentleman graduated from college, got a job making $19,000 a year. And in '76, that was a lot of money. And bought him a mahogany Monte Carlo, because the movie Mahogany came out. So then later on, about 2 years later, roommate actually was got a call from a computer science company, and I told him he was out. And anyway, he eventually had two computer science companies bidding on his services. He would hang up on one and talk to the other one, hang up on that one, talk back. Anyway, he got a job offer for $26,000 a year. This was '79. Now in '79, a starting teacher in Mississippi was making $8,900, I believe, or maybe $9,800. But he was making, his job in computer science was paying him more than what two teachers was making. And the last one changed my life considerably, because in college you realize that it's one thing to talk about being a physicist, and it's another thing to say, to do the work to be a physicist. And once I saw, and some of my friends saw, the amount of money you can make with these hard degrees, you stop telling people you're just majoring in physics, and you study physics enough in order to get that amount of money. Another friend of mine got a job with the Pentagon. And at that time, I had a job working for the Mississippi State Tax Commission, making like 16,000 something my first year. And he got a job with the Pentagon, and he made $32,000 in 3 months. I was making 16,000 in 12 months. So he made more. He made twice as much as I did in 3 months working with the Pentagon. He made twice as much as I made working 12 months. So what I'm saying is, a lot of those jobs that sound good on paper, and the people who actually put the work in, makes huge sums of money. And that's one of the reasons I'm adding this in. I'm gonna add one more story. I was in Houston, Texas in 1999. And in 1999 in Houston, Texas, CVS, the drugstore company, was giving signing bonuses of Mercedes-Benz, BMWs, and starting furniture off at $100,000 a year. And it was kind of fascinating to us because, wait a minute, I'm going like, here are these kids who are selling drugs legally, driving around Houston in drug dealer cars, and making money dealing drugs actually, and not violating a single law. Go to the policeman ball, whatever. They're like, my point is, studying hard can pay off in ways that a lot of people living in depressed economies don't see and won't see until you get in that. Okay, the next theory I want to talk about, the next principle I want to talk about, we're going to start calling it syllable crushing. Okay, in classes, the teacher or the professor normally hand out a syllabus. It's just a schedule for where the professor or the teacher plan to be on a certain day. You know, let you know they plan to be on chapter 5 in 3 weeks, or chapter 5 in a month, or chapter 8 in 7 months. It's just a schedule. In high school, we would read, some of us would read ahead of the teacher. But in college, it became common for us to do, some of us to do what we call crush the syllabus. In college semesters are 3.5 months. Usually we would cover the book in a month or two, and frankly, I had friends of mine, like Alvin, who would actually cover the curriculum in 2 or 3 weeks. But the thing is what we call syllabus crushing. Okay, let me interject a story here. Okay, in sports, football, basketball, and in the military, coaches and military trainers would always try to determine how a person, or athlete, or soldier would address an unknown adversary. For example, a linebacker and a running back. The coach would want to figure out when with the linebacker or the running back hit each other as hard as they could, or with one of them just hit the other one because that was the assignment, the play assignment, and be concerned about not getting knocked down and embarrassing himself. Or on a basketball team, the coach would try to see if his star center would try to dunk on the opposing center, or would he be more concerned about getting a shot blocked and embarrassed? Well, and in the military they would do it. Everybody wants to know how would this soldier behave when he or she has to confront an unknown adversary. Would you give them all you got and hope for the best, or would you just try not to get embarrassed? Well, now this year there's something new called virtual teaching, a virtual education. In China, in Mandarin and Japanese, the symbol for crisis and the symbol for opportunity is the same symbol, which means that Asian children learn that every time there's a crisis, there's an opportunity to shine, which means that there's an opportunity to demonstrate that you're among the best, as opposed to just being timid or frightened or scared or unsure of yourself. So now, when a person decides to doing virtual education, you want to be better than everybody else. There is no audience. It's an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to use this virtual education, this new virtual education, as an opportunity to be the smartest person I can be, or to get ahead of the class and to learn more from it than everybody else. And again, if you fail, then you can't be embarrassed because nobody sees you but you. And you can just simply get up and try harder. But back to syllable crushing. Okay, in my life, I've discovered there are two types of geniuses. Now, there's one group, I've only encountered like four of them. Ramanujan, Nikola Tesla, David Adair, Maria Osage. Okay, now Ramanujan, David Adair, and Nikola Tesla all contribute their knowledge to dreams. Ramanujan was say a four-handed Hindu goddess taught him mathematics. He just and taught him mathematics and dreams. But he took the world so far ahead in math that, frankly, we're still trying to catch up with what he's talking about. Okay, David Adair, he's the only one who's still alive, and you can see him on the internet, like you can see him in person if you want to pay the fee to see him. Somebody taught him in dreams, somebody taught him in dreams how to build what he called a magnetic fusion containment engine. And he said the guys at Area 51 just called it a star in a jar. And he built a rocket engine that moved so fast that it was invisible to the naked eye. And I'll leave something, website address, with this post where it can be found. Maria Osage, she and her group used meditation, and somebody taught them how to build a space carrier, a huge spaceship. And but that group of genius, and Nikola Tesla, Nikola Tesla was responsible for basically the modern age. His use AC as opposed to DC is why we have electricity in most of the United States. In DC, which that's the one to use, you have to build a generator like every 6 miles, and there was smoke in the place. It wasn't feasible. And he decided that he said to use AC, and that electricity can go indefinitely and not just 6 miles. The remote control that makes telephone, televisions, all wireless, all that's Nikola Tesla. He's still, in my opinion, the brightest person who ever lived, and he, again, got his knowledge in dreams. But my point is, there are two types of genius. That group who learn in dreams, and it's the other group, the ones who learn in dreams, and I've only encountered four of them, and four of them out of like about 10 billion people would make them literally 1 in 2 billion. So they're very, very rare. But most of the people, or almost all the people who are called geniuses, became geniuses by crushing syllabus. They would simply not wait on the teacher or the professor. They would simply learn things as fast as they could learn and keep on going, which is something that this new virtual teaching will allow students to do. And one of the things that fascinates me now is with virtual teaching is, okay, for example, there are a lot of virtual teaching going on in colleges now and in high school. And at some point, hopefully after the end of this election, a lot of that will be around and be put on the internet, either under the Department of Education, where a student, let's say Melrose College, or Melrose Junior High School in Memphis, can, if he's not learning his level 1 from the teacher there, he or she can also use a virtual teacher from Melrose High School in Jackson. Because of virtual education, the teacher no longer has to be in person. That system allows a student to go onto the internet and find the teacher that's easiest for him or her to understand, and it will allow that student to rank the teachers that he or she went through before they understood the subject well enough, which will make it easier for the next student trying to learn that subject to know how former watchers of that virtual teacher or that virtual lesson, let them know that the ones at the top are ones that most people find easier. Anyway, it will be a giant leap in America's ability, or the English-speaking world's ability, to educate our offspring, or to educate students. But my point is, in order to be a genius, let me back up. Okay, I'll tell two stories. One story about a student of mine, a friend of mine, who in college he read the entire. I was a sophomore, he was a freshman, and I was studying accounting, and he told me he had read the entire curriculum for accounting. And of course I called BS, right? You're a college freshman, you've been on college campus for about 4 weeks, and you will tell me you read all your textbooks from beginning to end, and you read all my textbooks from beginning to end, and you read the junior curriculum and the senior curriculum. He said, yes. And I was studying, I said, okay, I'm on chapter 4. Then he started guessing what chapter 4 was about, and he got it. G. Richard said, no, that's chapter 3, no, that's chapter 6. Okay, that's chapter 4. And he well, obviously he had read it. Then I flipped over to like chapter 9. I started talking to him, because obviously he read that one. So I flipped to the back of the book, and Alvin had read the entire book. And when somebody asked me about it, I said, I don't know if he's read the entire curriculum, but he's a freshman, and I know he had read all of the both first and second semester of accounting. And the thing about Alvin later on was, Alvin took an accounting course about a year later from a professor who had a reputation for being extremely racist. At the University of Mississippi in the late 70s, okay? That professor hired Alvin. And when that professor hired Alvin, he not only hired Alvin, Alvin was supervising an all-white staff of tax preparers. And he's like a sophomore. And a lot of people who were calling him racist were saying, we're talking about it. One said, but have you seen Alvin read? I said, yes, I have. Have you seen Alvin read? I said, yes, I have. He said, the reason Doc hired him wasn't race, that's money. Alvin is taking juniors and seniors' tax return, going through them so fast, putting down reference points, and passing them through. Doc hired him because Doc would make a lot more money with Alvin, an African American sophomore, as a supervisor in an accounting office tax department, than he would a senior. And that's what it's about. Well, that's Alvin, and needless to say, Alvin achieved what a lot of us would call genius status. And it happened from just putting in the work and not waiting on other people. He didn't wait for the professor to tell him what to read. He just ran as fast as he could. And another friend, a computer science major, he was dating a sociology major. Sociology is social work, social science major, one of those majors. And anybody who, I say, you watch shows like Big Bang Theory, people in physical science tend to be condescending to people in social science and don't really think of them as real scientists. And when you study computer science, you develop a real sharp, very, very sharp attention to detail, because to a computer, the difference between a period and a comma is just as wrong as a capital A and a lowercase z. And if you write a colon where it should be a semicolon, your computer program won't work. And you can spend hours trying to figure out what's wrong with your computer program until you realize what was supposed to be a period is actually a comma. And that's why all your work failed, because your computer program is like 1,800 lines, and in one of those lines, you put a period where you should have put a comma. So you develop an extreme sense of detail. Anyway, a sociology professor said something that the woman that O was dating, and she took it as racially offensive, and she told O about it and wanted O to get in a conversation about it. And he said, no, 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 I'm just going to take his class. So that was late April, early May. That was the end of the the end of the spring session. So over the summer, O read the book from cover to cover. The professor, he had read the professor's thesis, and the professor was an undergrad, I mean, was a grad student. And the grad student working on a PhD would have an advisor, and the advisor would have an undergrad thesis, graduate, or master's degree thesis, and a dissertation for his PhD. He had a couple of books he had written and some papers published. So O read all of that. Then when school started back in the fall, O waited till the last day before you could add the class, and added it. And if you wait till the last day before you add the class, if you miss a day, you get an F, because unless you're a football player or somebody at the school gave a tutor, if you don't have enough classroom hours, then you couldn't pass the course, because that's one of the conditions of a college degree, is having had the minimum amount of classroom hours. Anyway, when O went to class, he didn't have the book, and when he went to the next class, which was like 47 hours later, he demonstrated he had read the book from cover to cover, read the thesis, read the professor's thesis, gave him some ideas on that. He read his advisor's thesis and dissertation, gave some his opinion on that, and talked to him about the books his advisor had read and some of his papers his advisor had published. And needless to say, the professor was very impressed. So I remember talking to the lady I was dating about it, and I said, well, he cheated. That's why I said, no, he did it over 2 months. There are other people like Alvin who do that over 48 hours. And she said, no, no, no. When you do what me and my friends do, you simply buy the answer to the test, write on the bottom of your sneakers, and you go into the classroom and take the answers off the bottom of your sneakers and write them on the test. That's cheating. What O did was work his butt off, and he's a very bright individual, if you ask me. And I thought about it, and I realized she's right. Otis is a very bright individual. But my point is, the difference between Alvin and O was Alvin started studying and working on his study habits in elementary school, middle school, and high school. So when he got to college, he was like in a league of his own. He was the only one I knew. He was the only freshman I knew who was at that level when he arrived at Ole Miss, actually. And so that's why I'm saying most of the geniuses I know, in fact, all of them I know personally, achieve genius status by simply doing the work. Doing the work and not waiting on the teachers. I'll tell one more story. Another friend of mine, who's actually a college professor now, and he too was considered extremely bright, genius level. He was required to go to work for the Pentagon at one period in his life. As a freshman, he felt like the work he was being given, it was impossible for him to do. But there were some guys from the Middle East, some Arab guys, who were turning in all their homework at every class. So he said he'd asked them on a Friday around 2 o'clock if he could study with them. How could they manage to do all their homework? And he wanted to study with them, and he asked them, well, when do you study? They said, right now. So they went to the computer lab, and they stayed in the computer lab. In fact, he didn't show back up to his room until, because I was in his room, one of my Facebook friends, his roommate, Harold, um, until Sunday PM at almost 8 o'clock PM. And he was still freaking out, and because everybody thought he went home for the weekend. And he talked about how he spent the weekend in the computer lab with some Arab guys, Arab classmates. And he talked about, Will, we didn't go to sleep. All we did was work on problems. He said, and when we fall asleep, and soon you wake up, start back working on our problem. He said, for food, we called out and had people bring us food. And while we ate, we did homework problems. Fall asleep, as soon as we wake back up, he said, we finished our homework about 45 minutes ago. He said, wait a minute, y'all started working on homework at 3:50, about 3:50, 4 o'clock. As soon as our 3 o'clock class was over, we went straight to the computer lab and work. He said, once we finished, he said, I went to the union, checked my mail, and I walked here. That's all we've done. Now, back then, like most freshmen, sophomores, on weekends, you go to the football game, go to the Friday party, the Saturday party, watch Soul Train, talk on the phone to your girlfriend, and you pick up a book maybe at noon on Sunday and try to get your homework done. But my point was that after that time he took, and we learned what it takes to get those advanced degrees and PhDs, and be very well paid, was simply putting in the work. And in my opinion, that's what genius is. That almost everybody I know and everybody I met personally who later became extremely respected for their intellect got it from studying hard and studying more than anybody else. That's how it's done. Okay, in the 7th grade, I had a classmate, Rosa Williams, and we were talking because of course, she was on the honor roll, and she talked about how she had read all the books in her home, including all of our textbooks 2, 3, 4 times. So I asked her, why would she read our literature and history books multiple times? And she talked about how in our home there was only one television, and her younger siblings would watch cartoons on Saturday morning, and she hated cartoons, so she would read. And on Sunday, her older siblings and her father would watch sports, and she hated sports, so she read. And she said the only thing in the house to read, the only books to read were her textbooks, so she would read to her younger siblings on Sundays and Saturdays afternoon, and on Sundays she would also read her 10th grade brother's literature, history, and his textbooks. And I think she may have had a brother in the 11th grade. She talked about how she read all of his textbooks multiple times. I also had a high school friend of mine, John, who his children received double promotions throughout schools, particularly high school. And I look at those two, I compare those two, and Rose's motivation was she was self-motivated to stay ahead of the class because she just was bored and kept reading and doing homework and stuff. Except with John and all of his children, the parents was the motivating factor. Is the reason why his children was covering 2 grades every year. And when I think about that, I think about children who are motivated and what would happen if the parents helped motivate them, and how that would increase their productivity. Okay, now this part is about the not so beautiful part. of studying and trying to get good grades. The first part is, in college, a friend of mine, William Shaw, talked about how they discovered that there were certain students where the teachers would try to embarrass them to get them to drop out of school. And they would do it by, usually when they're 13 or going through puberty, they would get them in front of the board and ask them to work problems or uh, diagram sentences when the teachers knew they hadn't taught the student, and the student didn't have the ability to do it, so they would just keep them up there and chastise them for an extended period of time to embarrass them in front of their peers. Later on, I realized it happened to a lot of kids, especially in the Mississippi Delta where I'm from. But there was another thing. There was a guy, his name is James Holmes. James Holmes, we probably know him before becoming a mass murderer. He's the guy who shot up a theater in Colorado. What happened was, when I researched it, trying to figure out what happened, he failed a oral exam. I mean, he was a very bright young man. He'd proven he was very bright. He had scholarships, multiple scholarships, received his bachelor's degree and was working on his master's degree, and had some very nice scholarships that he turned down. But after he failed an oral exam, he lost his scholarship and became a mass murderer, actually. And the thing about the oral exam is, first of all, it's ridiculous to talk about giving an oral exam in grad school level mathematics. It's something that in college that was done in social work and social science. But even as an undergraduate, we knew that when a professor, he was giving an oral exam, that was just a way to switch people around on the grading curve. I remember one oral exam where the class said only about 5 people in the class actually took the oral exam. He just used the oral exam to say, this person came in to my office at this time, took an oral exam, made 98. This person came in at my office at this time, took the oral exam, made a 52. And normally in school, everybody knows who's making a good grades because of the way they participate in class, and when on the written exam, when the written exam came back, everybody would look at it, so we knew who was doing what. But in the case of an oral exam, there is no record of what the exam was about for each individual, and actually in a lot of cases there's no evidence of who actually did and didn't take the oral exam. So when I saw the oral exam part, I was naturally thinking, okay, I'll see what happened to him. They drove him off the deep end by taking a scholarship, and he cracked. So in the intellectual world, it's not fair. It's just like everything else in life. No matter how much they tell you it's fair, it's not. And if you work hard, a lot of people will hate you. You'll see it that the harder you work and the more intelligent you become, especially if you're poor or if you're viewed as not being bright or shouldn't be bright because you came from a poor background or single family home, or you went to a school that was poorly funded. In my case, what I'm saying is, don't let that break you. Not only don't let it break you, expect it, consider it a compliment on how much you've accomplished coming from where you started. And something else is about studying. When you study, you get to a point, especially now, okay, at the University of Mississippi, my friends will talk about, once you become a junior, you shouldn't need a teacher. You should be able to go to the library and check out books and read and learn and teach yourself anything you want to learn. And some of my friends, two that comes to mind, both have PhDs now. One's a judge here in Memphis, actually. You could teach yourself anything. But that was in the late 70s and early 80s. when you consider the internet today and YouTube and all the learning information now, the teaching information now, it is even more so today that you can teach yourself. And in a lot of the professions, you can, I look at coding or computer programming now. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West, actually. For example, there was a mass murder in San Bernardino, California, which is like east of LA. And Apple said they could not crack the code on the telephone, and nobody with the Department of Defense or National Security, CIA, nobody could crack the code. One gentleman called and said he could crack it, but he would charge it like $1 million plus. Actually, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security said the head of Homeland Security said they paid him twice what he made each year, and his salary was like $860,000 a year. So the young man the person who cracked the iPhone code made at least $1.6 million. Yes, 1.6 million. And there are skills where you can get like coding, where the government goes to convention looking for people with those skills, and they don't particularly care what grades you received or what your professor thought of you or teacher thought of you. And now when I look at the coronavirus, it's common to hear that, and the election, it's common to hear that China, Russia, Iran, North Korea is hacking into our systems. Coders with the skill to counterattack, to play defense and counterattack, are a group now where you can write your own ticket and you can prove your ability. You simply and it's been done, simply hack into the Defense Department, and some people get small sentences, serve small times for hacking into the Defense Department, but often they get job offers. So once you hone your ability to learn, don't let the haters or the people who hate you make you crack and do something ridiculous, like shoot up a theater. Simply get better and pursue a skill where no matter it doesn't matter what people think of you or what others think of you. Okay, I'm interjecting another story. About 15 years ago, I was at the car shop, a repair place, having my car repaired, and a young man asked me about the movie Dangerous Mind. And I told him I didn't see it and wasn't interested in it, and he asked why. So I talked to him about it. I told him, well, if you are making a movie, and the title of the movie is called Dangerous Mind, and you do not figure out a way to talk about AQ Khan in the trailer, then you didn't know what a dangerous mind was, and you were just making a movie about rappers, probably subpar rappers. So he asked about AQ Khan. Okay, AQ Khan, let me explain AQ Khan. Okay, a group of Germans, some of the best scientists in the world in Germany, created a rocket. They built a rocket. And when the United States got the rocket, because that group of scientists came over in a project called Paperclip, and that's how the United States got the rocket. Okay, the H-bomb was built by a different group of very intelligent scientists in a project called the Manhattan Project, where they gathered out in Colorado, Arizona, someplace out in the Midwest desert. Excuse me, and they built a rocket. They built an H-bomb, and excuse me again. After they built the H-bomb, Russia got the H-bomb because they had some spies that steal the work that the Manhattan Project completed. England, France, Germany got it because they were partners of NATO. And we also believe that's how Israel has it. South Africa reportedly bought their uh, weapon, a nuclear weapon from Israel. Okay, now, but there was a guy who was a nuclear physicist slash rocket scientist. His name is A.Q. Khan. A as in apple, Q as in quorum, Khan, Khan. What he did was he not only built a H bomb, he made it an atomic bomb. He built one working that was so small that you could put it on a rocket. And he also built a rocket to deliver it. And it was reportedly like the first time an individual had done that without just stealing somebody else's. And he also reportedly sold some of his know-how to Iraq, Libya, and North Korea. But according to him, the stuff that he sold them wasn't a threat, because he said that the problems they were having in advancing their nuclear technology were problems that were simple. But there was other stuff like the trigger that he almost gave up on because it was so hard. And he was saying that if they couldn't build it, if they couldn't get past the stuff that he sold them, there was no way they could get past 3 steps that were much harder. So he felt like the stuff he sold them wasn't a threat. Anyway, he was put on a house arrest in Pakistan, and because he helped develop Pakistan's, he's probably the main factor in Pakistan becoming a nuclear power. But when he was under house arrest, the U.S. wanted him to be arrested and incarcerated in the United States, but the government of Pakistan said no, because he was a hero to the Pakistani, and he wasn't a problem because in his house arrest, which they pretty much just built a prison around his home, he could only talk to his physician. He was not only able to talk to his mother, his children, his siblings, his minister, or he was, I believe, Hindu, his religious leaders. He couldn't even talk to psychological leaders. He was only able to talk to a medical doctor. And the reason he was put under that condition was because he was perceived as having the most dangerous mind on the planet Earth from about 2000 to like 2010, and in a lot of cases even now. But he's no longer under house arrest, and the United States is still having a problem with that. I mean, President Obama made a big deal out of him being released from house arrest, because at that time they still perceived him as being the most dangerous man on planet Earth. But my point is, there are things you can do, but even no matter what happened to you, keep you cool, study hard, and do your best. And when you do your best, who knows where you may end. Another thing about that I've been seeing a lot lately, and it's kind of turning haters. I was watching the movie Notorious about the rapper Christopher Wallace, and he called a teacher a dumbass, and said how a garbage man would make more than a teacher. If you're studying, you work hard. Don't do that. Don't embarrass the teacher. It's not productive. In school, I was only part of that group in college. When we demonstrated our abilities, we would do it after class and sometimes in the professor's office. And one of the reasons when I look back at it that was a smart thing to do is recommendations. Professors, and even in high school teachers recommend students for colleges. And in colleges and universities, professors recommend students for grad school, recommend students for jobs, recommend students for law school, medical school, and being and embarrassing them is counterproductive. You may even, depending on how fast you go, you may even need one of those teachers and/or professors to help educate you on a subject that you're having problems in the library. You should be in the library getting information that's easy enough to understand. Today is like most likely getting information off the internet to help you understand. So you may even need them to help you understand stuff that you're trying to learn. And embarrassing them, again, is counterproductive. And in the long run, it will be more impressive, in my opinion, if you just do the work, let them know you do the work, and move on. But I also want to tell a story about my brother. He's passed away now. When I was talking to him, he was still in high school and I was in college, about what we were doing, and we call it syllable crushing. I noticed from talking to people in the area that he had became an honor student and was moving up real fast on honor roll. And I talked to one of the teachers back home. I was going, "What's up with my younger brother?" He said, "Well, what he did was one of the practice teachers. They have practice teachers, but teachers people graduate from college and want to teach, and you would practice teach at a school for a semester, then you go back and graduate." And he told one of the practice teachers that they must not have thought much of his ability, because they gave him 4 months or 9 weeks, I believe, to cover material. And he said, "Well, most people could cover this in about a month." And he said, the practice teacher said, "You think you can cover this?" He said, "I can cover it in a month." He said, "But some of my friends who are not as smart as me can also cover this in a month." So they covered it and in a month. And I said, "Well, the teacher, the student was impressed?" He said, "No, the whole school was impressed." He said, and I want to know why. He said, "Well, one of the things he talked about was how it made the school look good." And I wonder, what's that about? And he talked about how they were taking standardized tests. And in the standardized tests, they would measure what the children should make on the standardized test based on where the school was in the syllabus. So for some students who was expected to be at one level in the syllabus had demonstrated knowledge that was ahead of the rest of where the standardized test predicted they would be. He said that not only reflected on the teachers, it reflected on the whole school, and the school was impressed, and they were doing things to help encourage more students to just go for it. If you can go faster than the teacher and faster than the syllabus say it, you should go, then go for that. And one more thing, I'm trying to wrap this up. A friend of mine is from South Africa who studied in Russia and Cuba before he got to the University of Mississippi. Talked about how he was upset that in Russian, because he took Russian at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss was only giving out A's and B's in Russian. And he was talking to one of the Russian professors, why was that so? And what had happened was President Reagan asked on television that they needed more Americans to understand Russian. And that was what he talked about during one of his press conferences. And he said, but according to the University of Mississippi, the federal government wanted as many Americans as possible to be able to hear Russian and say without a doubt, those two people are speaking Russian. And the educational system, with Ole Miss participating, stopped giving out C's, D's, and F's for Russian. If you were willing to just come into class, take Russian, and learn it well enough where you can just say, okay, they are speaking Russian, they will give you an A or a B. And part of this clip, at the bottom, there's some guys, David Adair and Nikola Tesla and Maria Osage and others, who contributed knowledge to dreams, visions. And David Adair talked about how somebody was teaching him how to build a very advanced rocket in his dream, and he would like wake up, write it down, go back to sleep. They teach him more. He wake up, write it down, and then in the morning he would look and he would remember it. And I remember watching a movie, Stand and Deliver, which is coincidentally is also a movie about some children, Hispanic children in Africa. and a teacher, they called him Chemo. I think his name was Jamie Elantra. Anyway, they called him Chemo. And in the movie, one of his students fell asleep and he woke him up. He said, "You're dreaming? You're sleeping?" He said, "Yes, I was dreaming that a dolphin, and I was discussing real numbers with a dolphin." And the teacher said, "Go back to sleep, go back to sleep." And at that time, I didn't get the joke. The joke was go back to sleep, and the joke is some of the smartest people in the world contribute their learning or their advanced knowledge to dreams where somebody was teaching them things or teaching them advanced mathematics and rocket science, actually. Another story is a friend of mine, Harold Kendall. What's up, Kendall? Weird Harold, gotcha. In school, he had a phrase called playing college. And we picked it up and it became popular. But to make it simple, and I'll break it down to high school level, if you're studying and you're not on a football team, then you would spend a minimum, whatever amount of time the football team spent practicing football after school, then spending at least that amount of time studying after school was just playing college. And we're doing the same thing for football during football season. And then basketball season will come. If the basketball team spent 2.5 hours practicing basketball after school, then you have to spend 2.5 hours studying after school. And in the spring, whatever amount of minutes and hours the track and field team or the baseball team spent practicing, then we'll spend that amount of time in the library after school studying. And eventually it became what he called playing college. Whatever that minimum amount of time was what he required as playing college. And to say this, okay, as we got older, I'm saying when you're 35, 40, and you're a professional, especially a professional African American male, there's a discussion in the office about this kid getting ready, trying to go pro, and so on and so forth. And there's two schools of thought that developed, actually. And one of them is when you take all the time that a lot of those kids, especially starting off at first, second, third, well, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, playing sports, and then they go to college and they play sports, and they don't go pro. And just like Jerry Rice said in the commercial, and you see in the commercial, out of 470-something thousand kids, less than 1,000 of them will go pro. Then we talk about how much better most of those kids' life would be if they had spent those hours studying math, studying chemistry, studying biology or microbiology. So that point was that school of thought is a lot of the people in the office say, okay, we need to start telling those kids the professional sports is not a guarantee. You probably would like to spend at least half that amount of time, or what you call it, diversifying your options, which means that if you play one sport and you know you're real good, you're all state, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of guys I knew who were all state ended up becoming college professors, medical doctors, and other things because when after high school they said, okay, no, the chances of making it in this sport are small. I can make it as a doctor, or I can make it as a marketing professor. And when I look back at it, and I have friends who were actually very successful in sports, but I had friends who played sports and was only there for 3, 4 years, some 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And right now, last time I checked, the minimum wage in the NFL was like $230,000 a year. Now that's $230,000 a year for 3, 4 years. And I talked earlier about how CVS in Houston was starting out 23-year-olds at $100,000 a year. And those 23-year-olds will be pharmacists for 40 years. So being pharmacists for 40 years and being in the NFL for 3 years, who's the winner? the pharmacist will make 10, 15 times as much as the person who plays. That's an NFL pro ball. Don't even talk about stuff like the WNBA, where they make little to no money or whatever years. So my point is, I want to say this: uh, if when you go to college, don't be ashamed as a freshman to walk directly into the placement office and ask the head of the placement office, which degree at that university pays the most amount of money, and major in that starting your freshman year. Then when you find something that you love doing more than that, then switch. But don't feel obligated to say, well, I'm just hang out in here until I do something I love, till I find something I love. Please don't be ashamed to say, first of all, I'm poor. I came from a poor background, and I would love to make the kind of money to drive the fancy sport cars, live on the fancy side of town. On start there. And if I find something that I want to do more than that, then I'll change my major. But from the start, I'm trying to make the most money I can. That's something that you might want to consider. Wrapping this up, this is the last thing I want to talk about. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I've developed a new appreciation for intelligent leadership. I believe that I have underappreciated the value of leaders who are willing to do the research and do the preparation in order to be good leaders. And one of the things about this experiment is it's an effort to try to create better leaders. But in my opinion, the best way to become a better leader is lead. And the best way to lead, I believe, and the best way to develop leadership skills is in this opportunity of crisis, take the opportunity to lead and lead in being the best prepared person or developing the skills to say, I can do the research, I can study any problems, think about them long enough to come up with the solution and come up with better solutions. So again, one of my main purposes, and it's not the only purpose, I'm hoping it can do a lot of other things other than that, is to try to motivate our new young generation to go out and prepare yourself to be leaders to fix our broken planet, nation, state, county, and city. On the long side of things, I remember looking at the national results from the advanced placement test, and here was California, and New York, and Connecticut, and so on and so forth. And when I looked at my home state to see what the pass rate for the advanced placement test was for the state of Mississippi, not a single student in the state of Mississippi even took the advanced placement test. And for a junior or senior, that may be a long leap. But for a third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader, by the time you become a 10th, 11th, 12th grader, and advanced placement should be an option. And here's the last thing for certain. Where I live here now, there's a problem one of the problems with the education school system is, and I think it also applies to Mississippi. The school system statewide has decided to not promote students unless they meet a minimum standard in reading, which is about, I think they take the 4th grade, maybe after 4th grade. If you can't read at the 4th grade level, then they fail you and make you repeat the 4th grade. And the problem is because you're really hindering yourself. You're carrying a big weight around if you're trying to move through middle school and high school without adequate reading level. But the problem is when they fail kids, the kids tend to drop out of school. And if you drop out of school, that increases your rate of going to prison. So the school is trapped in between promoting kids who can't read, which means they really won't do well in school, or holding them back, which means they're more likely to drop out of school and end up in prison anyway. Here's an idea. In Memphis, they big problem with it. They didn't know what to do, so they just postponed it for a year. And I think Tennessee and Mississippi may have a similar problem. But I was thinking, why are they making a determination at one grade when a child cannot read or gets behind on a grade level? You can see that in the second grade, third grade, and fourth grade. And a lot of parents were saying, why do they wait and tell us this now? And I agree with the parents. When your child cannot read at grade level in the second grade and third grade, then you should measure that child's reading level and let the parents know. If your child spends an extra 30 minutes a day reading, they'll be probably more likely to be at reading level by the end of the second grade. And how much time they have to spend reading extra and books to catch up on the reading level in the third grade and fourth grade. And the parents or the guardian almost never change. So it makes more sense to me to start correcting the problem in the second, third, and fourth grade, as opposed to identifying it in the fourth grade and felling them and put them on a track out of school and towards prison. And and the last thing, certainly this time, to the students. And if a child is not reading at grade level, the only solution is practice. And if the parents can make the child read aloud and guarantee the child gets to practice and catch them up, and the parent can also require that the child read aloud more than what the teacher say is required for them to catch up and get them ahead. But if a child who reads, if a child in the fifth grade decides they want to read at the 10th grade level while they're in the fifth grade, nobody can stop them. That's still the same practice. I have elementary school friends who in fifth grade was fascinated. Hey, Jackie, the school was fascinated because they were reading at almost graduating level, and they were still in elementary school. And again, just like Rosa Williams and others, it's practice, and it's not fighting a bear. It's not trying to swim across the Mississippi. It's reading a textbook. It's never killed anybody. Nobody ever drowned. Nobody ever got mauled to death. It's simple. It's nothing that anybody should be afraid of. And if you're afraid of it, then it's likely that you were traumatized deliberately by one of your teachers. And the best revenge for that is getting over it and excelling past your teachers. And I won't say this because it has to be said again. We talk about crushing syllabus and passing teachers. The truth is, trying to pass a primary or secondary school teacher should be the easiest thing in the world and a good place to start practicing. Just go for it. Good luck and peace out.